fake Dracula teeth feel really weird in your mouth, y'all. Full ass spoilers for Renfield, directed by Chris McKay and written by people who I'm sure Sparkz will tell me in 1 minute.
I'm working on it, yeah.
We got Nicholas Hoult. We got
Ryan Ridley.
Ryan Ridley. Look at that.
Based on a story from Robert Kirkman.
That's right, Robert Kirkman. Walking Dead, Invincible Zone, Robert Kirkman. Look at that guy. Making copies, making money. Yeah, full spoilers for Renfield. Hey, Ben, you're part of a Universal Monsters podcast. You're familiar with Dracula. How do you feel about Renfield, his manservant?
I loved this movie. I had an absolute blast. This movie was so much fun. We'll get into it, but Nicolas Cage was awesome. Nicholas Hoult was great. I loved Awkwafina in this movie. I also loved Ben Schwartz. I had no idea Ben Schwartz was in the movie. You never see him in any of the trailers, or at least from what I can see. Maybe you do see him. Did you see him in the trailers?
You did see him in the trailer.
Damn it, I missed it.
That's okay.
But either way, I thought this movie was fantastic.
Hell yeah. I am unfortunately not as positive as you, Ben. I liked it, but I got a lot of issues with it, unfortunately. I think there's a lot to like here. I think taking a big swing about like modern Dracula dealing with like criminal gangsters is like a really novel, cool idea. For me, I don't think they went full as hard as the movie wants to be. I can feel the studio interference in it almost the entire movie. It's still allowed to be a big, gross, like, action comedy. But there's just some things that just bother me. And mostly having the narration in a movie always bothers me. And this one felt particularly awful. There are just some points where like an emotional scene will be happening and then he will have to narrate, here's what I'm feeling in case you didn't get it. And that really frustrates me in movies when you don't allow your audience to just feel it, like you're telling them how to feel instead of them like gauging it for themselves. Overall, I think it's a lot of fun, but I wish I liked it more.
I had a pretty good time. I'm probably somewhere in between you two. I echo a lot of what Ryan's saying. I think there's a tonal problem with the film. I think that had it committed completely to the camp that I feel like it wants to be / sets up, then I would probably feel differently. But like there's an imbalance going on in this movie. But end of the day, I'd rather a wild, crazy big swing with Nicolas Cage's Dracula than not have this film at all. I think it's a refreshing taste of monster movie fun.
Taste? I agree. I'm done with these. Yeah, I'm definitely. I do agree. Like, I would much rather have this in my life than not. I just wish it was allowed to be the movie that it wants to truly be. Yeah. I think Nicolas Cage is sensational. Yeah. He
crushing it.
There's just a point in the movie where he's just like, he goes, okay. Just like it's just what Nick Cage says, not what Dracula says. And I'm like, he's just being Nick Cage. He's having so much fun. Love it. I think he's menacing when he needs to be. The practical effects all look great. I love when he's oozy and gooey. As much as he is like fully formed or whatever. I think he without him, I think this movie would be significantly worse. I think he is a lot of the cream of the crop of the movie.
I completely agree. Looking back on this, the reason why I like this movie so much is because of Nicolas Cage's campiness as Dracula. You're absolutely right. I was even talking about this with my roommate last night about how he's funny but menacing, how he brings the campiness that is this character, and also him being Nick Cage, but also there are times where he's legitimately terrifying, where it's like, this is mother effing Dracula. He can kill you just in a blink of an eye. And there are also parts where he's just funny. Like his whole plan to take over the world is like, it's like domination by D and Renfield and on a sticky note. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not enough will be able to be said about the fact that Nick Cage owns this film. This movie is living and dying on his performance. He's just absolutely captivating in the role, and so much fun because you don't know what he's gonna do, and what kind of craziness he's gonna bring to Dracula.
I love his like silly raspy voice that he's doing. He sometimes is like Transylvanian when he needs to be.
To his credit, he does a very good job acting through those teeth.
Yes,
Oh.
you can tell.
He feels very comfortable in the prosthetics that he's constantly being put in. I think he's looking very good.
Yeah.
In particular, I really love the first time we see him in modern day, which is when he's like really got like skin kind of flopping around and like not really forming on him. And I was like, I love this look. I love it. And his performance shines through all of that. And I really, really enjoy him. He's just so full of this committed to the bit, narcissistic Dracula who's driven just by picking up kind of like on Bela Lugosi cues, but not 100% recreating it. And I really appreciate it. I think it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, what's fun is like real quick, like this is technically a sequel. Like they wrote it to be a sequel. Like again, we see it in the movie, like with like the Demeter, like all that stuff did happen. And it is funny to think like, and then 80 more years happened. Where would he be now? And I'm like, yeah, it would be modern day, and he would have to deal with bullshit like this. Like it is a funny concept. And then seeing from the trailers, it made it seem like it was a weird superhero movie. Now it makes more sense that it was just like undercover gangsters hiding their faces. Like all that stuff smooths out. And I think the world is a fun world.
Yeah. I was gonna say I absolutely adored the ode to the 1930s film.
The opening.
Yeah.
So it's so good, and I have to gush about this because like I have seen a lot of media in my life, and there's always this attempt to like recreate what old films look like, and it's almost always imperfect and not getting it right. And this is so good because some shots are from Dracula and some shots aren't, and some shots are mixing them into shots from Dracula, and some shots are new.
Yep.
And like visually they made it perfect. It's seamless between those. They recaptured old film look so well that there's even one shot where like I almost thought it wasn't Nicholas Hoult and it was the original actor who played Renfield, and I'm like, that's not possible. Why would they do that for this one shot? That is Nicholas Hoult. But like it's so pitch perfect, and it's a shot where he's looking up from the lower deck of the ship doing his that is so accurate. Everyone who ever wants to do old film look needs to look to this production team now because they nailed it. They got it 100% correct.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I can't really gush about it much. I can't gush about it, but I just want to say because I remember I borrowed your copy of Dracula, like the original 1930s Dracula from you, Sparkz, because I've always wanted, because I've never seen a classic Universal monster film up until that point. And when I was watching Renfield, I was like, man, you're 100% correct. They did such an amazing job recreating like the famous scene with Bela Lugosi on the stairs in the classic costume where he says, "I am Dracula." And it's Nicolas Cage. It's like, did they just put Nicolas Cage's face over Bela Lugosi's, or did they just recreate it? Because that I can't tell. It looks so good.
So when they are put into the Dracula film, their whole body is put in.
Okay.
So
they're on a green
screen.
Their
heads are not being replaced on.
They're on a green screen.
But they have done a very good job of editing around to make the background seamless behind them. But their bodies, when it's them, their bodies are always
they're replaced. Yeah.
There are some wide shots where like it's actually still Bela Lugosi and the original actor, but like they're in wide, so it doesn't matter. And then there's some shots that are like the in between shots that are like the maid falling and that kind of thing. That's just straight up the shot from Dracula. Like they didn't put someone else in that, but like they didn't just replace their heads. They're standing in the movie, which is really great. It looks great. Incredible. It really is. Like it's just visually just such a treat, especially as a fan of those films.
Oh yeah.
But that's not what the movie's about. But it is really, really cute, and I'm really glad they did it because it also like it does set up a tone. Because by today's standards, those films are campy.
Yeah.
Like they weren't then, they are now. And I think that campiness does kind of live in the opening of the film. And the more we get dragged into the Awkwafina storyline, and the further that Renfield pushes into that storyline, the more it gets into this like serious, very, very serious
her stuff is like all serious. Yeah.
That doesn't jive with the campiness.
Yeah.
Awkwafina is actually like not allowed to be as funny in this movie, which confused me about why they cast her.
She's kind of like the straight man.
Yeah. She has good moments. I don't mean to like put her down or anything. It's just like why I thought she was the person cast in this role turned out not to be the reason.
Yeah. She is like who what's his name? Lobo, Tommy Lobo or whatever. Like that's the energy I thought she was gonna bring.
Right. Ben Schwartz energy.
Ben Schwartz energy. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I did.
BS energy. Yeah.
The crime family meeting up with Dracula kind of thing and like him using them as a tool is a fun thing and a cool idea. And like you see Ben Schwartz getting turned into a familiar from a mile away.
Yeah.
But I think for an hour and a half movie, it takes a little too long for us to get to that point. I think we spend a little bit too much time dragging our feet through like the Renfield and Awkwafina stuff.
Also,
at the beginning.
At the end, when he becomes a familiar, like 5 other dudes also become familiars, so it doesn't feel as impactful because they all just get killed like immediately too.
Yeah. Hated that choice.
Yeah, I think I like all the action and I like how like bombastic it is. I do think the choice of like making the gore like extra bloody, so like every stab there's just like gushers of blood happening. I think it doesn't totally work for this movie. I think sometimes like when it's like I don't know how I would solve the problem personally, like because like I think like the giant gushers of blood, like when he caves a bot, like when he's jumping down and he literally caves that dude's body.
That one in particular bothers me because we see a shot after where Awkwafina is stepping over that guy, and like, that guy is just there.
Yeah,
like there's nothing about his body that looks like that amount of gore came out of
I think the problem with it is that it's all CG. Is that all the blood is CG, and it just looks bad.
The implication to me is like that dude's body might not be in half, but it should be close.
Yeah.
At that point, and he's like just laying there on the top of the car, and I'm like, there's something else needed to be done with that.
And there wasn't like an explosion. Everything was still like I was like,
no.
Yeah,
but like where the CGI blood didn't bother me as much personally. Was things like the ripping off of the arms. The
face rip.
The face. Yeah, where the guy's just that was pretty
it's just like this there's a lot of stabbing and it's just like and it's like it felt like 300, but I'm like 300 is like a comic book.
And like and to your point, I think it would fit if the movie lived in campy tone the entire time.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I think again like Awkwafina stuff could have landed better for me if the tone of the movie was stronger. If it was more unified, I should say, excuse me. Because again, like her stuff with her dad, like the dead dad and the sister, that's all very serious.
Yeah.
Well, Renfield's over here eating bugs, like knocking people's heads off.
I want
like they're different movies.
I want all of the gangster stuff to be on the same level as Ben Schwartz and the 3 guys we meet at the beginning who are like, no, you can't take it back. Take the drugs.
Yeah, like that was so good.
I want all of the gang stuff to be on that level where it's all kind of farcical in a way. And it isn't. Like, once you bring in the mom, she's very self-serious. The stuff with the police department is very self-serious. And I'm like, we could have scaled this down a lot.
And the mom stuff is so, like, surface level, generic bad guy stuff. And that actress who's, like, again, the greatest voice actor of all time with her raspy, beautiful voice. I love Grayson's comment. One of my favorite CG spots was Ben Schwartz's Mortal Kombat death. 100%. That is a X-ray move from Mortal Kombat X. Yeah. That was awesome. His entire spine breaking, him shitting blood out, vomiting blood out. That was like, wow, that was extreme.
Yes,
that was.
But I want the movie to live in that tone the entire time. And 100%. Like, I feel like it could have, because like, it's there. It's, you know, you're doing all these bits. Like Nicholas Hoult is playing a Renfield who's like, he's got to eat bugs to activate his superpowers and all this kind of stuff. And like, it's there. And I wish it was just totally consistent the whole time and like utilizing that. I honestly thought this movie was going to be funnier.
I did too.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah,
I did. I did think it was very funny. I thought it was going to be funnier. I thought the whole point was going to be more comedy, but it's not that it goes into horror. That's there. But like, that's just because it's like, you know, Dracula, a monster movie and a vampires and like, so that's implied, but it's more just like there's too much drama in this, and like it's not necessary.
Honestly,
I think the only part of the dramatic storytelling that works for me is Renfield going to the AA meetings, and I'll say like the only part of it that I feel should stay as dramatic as it is in the film is the part where Dracula kills everybody in that room, because I didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I thought somehow they were going to work around it, but Dracula murdered all those people, and I was like, okay,
that
should have
been
going to happen.
Like the one emotional like down point of the movie. Like the Awkwafina stuff with her dad and like the sister. I'm going to be honest, like I just don't care for it. Like I don't care that your dad was a great cop who got like it didn't do enough for me. I wish that could have been sidelined and just focused on Awkwafina with Renfield, because I think their chemistry is good enough for me. I
think you can just do that. Like, she's tried to bust this guy, and like this guy committed blatant crimes while she was being pushed back to traffic. And it frustrates her because he's always getting away with it.
I don't need any more than that.
Yeah, you didn't need more setup than like he got to walk again. He just threw a bag of cocaine into a cop's face and he's walking out of here. Like, you don't have to make it more complicated than that. Not for this film.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Although, you can just say like the other cops are dirty, but like we don't need to bring in this family backstory. You don't need to bring in the dad. You don't need to bring in the sister.
Yeah, I do like Ben Schwartz a lot. I just love when that dude shows up. So sure, he is just a ton
of fun,
a good time on screen. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What other characters have we got? Have we mentioned
Apache Joe, the racist assassin whose head gets punched into a window?
Is it still okay to make like a racist joke if you acknowledge that it's racist? Do you know that kind of joke? Is that like, because like it didn't offend me, but I'm like, I don't think that's particularly funny either, though.
Oh, like, they call it. I heard him say Patchy Joe, not as in Patchy.
No. That's why Ben Schwartz is literally on the phone talking about him and saying, "You call him racist. He's the guy who cuts out people's tongues." With
it's a Patchy Joe, like is an Indian. Yeah.
I could have done without it.
Yeah. I just like.
No, it's in the 30 Rock territory of like, because we acknowledge it's racism, it's okay to make the joke.
Yeah. Also, at that point, Ben, I thought this was the time in the movie when we were going to learn that there were going to be other monsters in this universe.
Yeah, okay,
like I thought that was going to be a Frankenstein or like a zombie or something. And like, oh, we're going to learn that monsters exist in this world, and like, oh, it's criminals and it's monsters.
More importantly, Ryan and I had the same thought, which is there's a part in the movie where one of the gang family's cars comes all the way up to the camera, and you
Lobos.
see their wolf logo very prominently.
Snorting
and
cocaine.
I was like, yo, are they werewolves?
Yeah.
Are we about to get werewolves in this? Because if the story had been either about Dracula teaming up with werewolves or about Dracula finding out they're werewolves when he comes in there and he smells her, and then he's like, oh shit, werewolves. And like that becomes a whole thing where now they have Dracula. They've captured Dracula and are torturing him in the basement, and he needs Renfield now because he thought he had people on his side and now they have him. That would have been like bonkers bananas.
Yeah.
Also, the scene where you see the first time you see the mom, and behind the screen you see a woman and a dude chained up on a chair. Part of me was like, Victoria Frankenstein?
Oh, sure.
I didn't think that at all.
Sure. I mean, like,
I get you. I just assumed that they were torturing
just
people.
Torturing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were torturing people, but the same, But now that you mention it, I kind of wish there were other monsters, because I saw this with some of the cast from D and Dark, and after the movie we were talking about who was who. It was like, oh, where's the Frankenstein monster? Where's the Wolfman? And you're right, the Lobos would have been great if they were all werewolves. That would have been awesome. And now I kind of wish there were other monsters. That would have been cool.
Yeah, I think that there was an opportunity, especially to like flip the whole thing on its ear, where like Dracula is adamant and consistent about saying like, I don't need you, Renfield. Like I choose to utilize you, but like I don't you can't hurt me, Renfield. That kind of thing. And then him being trapped by werewolves would be a very like, oh shit, I need you, Renfield. And like the way you can turn that relationship on its ear, and like Renfield could just leave him behind at that point if he were. I'm rewriting the movie, and I don't mean to do that, but Renfield would have been able to leave him behind at that point. But Awkwafina would be like, "Yo, we can't just leave the city in the power of werewolves." Yeah. So like now he has to go kill these werewolves and Dracula.
There's so much like wolf, because again, like Lobos is like
it's all over the place.
It's like a Mexican wolf. So I'm wondering if like there was a bigger idea here that they're like, oh, we have to tone it down in some capacity, because this is a this movie cost $65 million, which is like relatively low budget for like an action movie of like what this is. So I'm like, I wonder if this had bigger aspirations. They're like, we gotta cut it down a little bit. But I
agree with you. I feel like a trepidation from the studio, not willing to like fully invest into what this kooky idea is.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you tone this up like 20% more in the direction of where it's at its best and at its most weird, this movie rules.
Give me one more F you Kyle joke and I would have been like, there it is. Love it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the
funny.
Kyle jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy for you.
Yeah.
I did appreciate like there's some really good like bits and jokes. I really love when the cop is in the crime family room watching Renfield go through people, and when he leaps up and he's like, yo, he can fly.
Yeah.
That little bitch can fly. Yeah. And then ripping the arms off, and he's like, oh hell no, I'm out of this.
Renfield just like with arms.
I think the arms bit is very funny. I really like him slapping shit around with arms, and when he throws it to spear the guys into the wall is really, really good.
Yeah, I think all the action is really fun, and like again, like I wish the whole movie just kept that energy.
I think my biggest problem is with the Renfield, like, I'm going to take this step forward away from Dracula, get the apartment and everything, is that like when they come around on it and Dracula is there, it's like it feels very half-assed in how he thought it through. Like, yeah, he's depriving Dracula, but like Dracula would never do anything about it. Like, it's like he doesn't think about it at all.
He's been doing this for 80 years, and he's just like, I'm just gonna get a new apartment.
Right.
Like, that's it. You didn't move out of the city?
That's like one of the weaker points of the film where I feel like it's just dragging its feet, and I'm like, just get us through this. Like, I get what you're doing, but like we can go about this more efficiently.
Yeah. And at the same time, I love Nick Cage in that scene.
No, I love when he comes to the apartment.
Yeah.
That's a great scene, but like you can get there without doing the stuff in between that. I'm like this. It's the movie slows down for that section.
For this movie,
where it doesn't feel like it's giving me more information about the characters. It's just slowing down.
This movie is only like 90 minutes long, and I'm gonna be honest, I even felt it drag for 90 minutes.
You know what? I want to say one positive before I agree with that point. The scene we're talking about where Dracula is in Renfield's apartment, I do love the joke where he looks at the welcome mat and goes, shit. Because
no, it's really good.
That is good, but I do agree because I felt like this movie felt like more than it was a 2-hour long movie. I did not feel like an hour and a half movie. Unlike the film we saw last week, where that definitely felt like an hour and a half movie. It was going like boom, boom, boom. This one did feel like it was dragging its feet a little bit. And then I was like, really? It's only this o'clock at night? It feels like it's been a lot longer. And I do feel, I will agree that that's to the movie's detriment. I don't know why though. Probably, I don't know, because I wasn't bored. I was engaged the entire time. But I do agree that there were some slow parts of the movie where I wasn't like, oh, get on with it. I was just like, it's okay.
It's because like the bit that we were referring to before, where it's like it's him going shopping and doing all the stuff and like getting the apartment and all that, and then going and giving his witness statement and spending time with Awkwafina's character. It's fine, but like that's not telling me anything new about Renfield. It's not progressing the story of this movie in any meaningful way, and it's not unlocking something new about the characters. It's not like he engages in a major way more with her, right? Like the conversation isn't new. And I understand, like, you get very early on what they're doing with Renfield about like him wanting to break up this codependent relationship. That's all fine, well, and good, but like we didn't need to go through all the beats the way that they did them to get to that point, to get to the point where Dracula comes and confronts him about it. Like you could have gotten there in different kinds of steps and gotten us to the same end, but more efficiently and in a way that was really rewarding, and could have spent more time on the things that were working about the movie where it wasn't. And I think a good example of that too is also when like Dracula's playing the bit on Awkwafina's character to like, I can bring her back, just choose me. And like I get that it's to torture Renfield, but I'm like that goes for a long time, where like where we're, you know, it's just not, it's not moving crisply through this story.
You just feel during that scene, you just feel like the scene in Monty Python where they just keep constantly yelling, get on with it.
Get on with it.
Yeah, it's just not, it's not utilizing its runtime to its maximum. It's really like filling air in a couple of places instead of like really taking advantage of what the story wants to be. It feels
like they wrote a 70-page script and like, shit, we need 20 more pages. We need give Awkwafina a sister. Go have a Redfield get an apartment and some clothes to fill out the 10 minutes. You know, because it doesn't really add much to this ride.
Right, and I could have gone more. Honestly, give me another scene of just Dracula chewing the scenery, maybe with Ben Schwartz. Honestly, I wish we had one more scene with Dracula and Ben Schwartz. I'm sad that it was as limited as it was.
I wanted
it was
more
really engaging because I really love when he's like, "Are you happy? Or are you going to mess me up?"
Yeah, that's great. And I love when like when he first meets the mom and he's like, "Nice to meet you," and he's like, "Oh." Like, are you gonna bang my mom? Oh, like I could have used more of that dynamic. Like again, like I don't think the mom villain was, again, I don't think she had to be because she's not really our main antagonist. I think she's just surface level.
I think if she's not going to be a werewolf, then she doesn't need to be in the movie.
Yeah. Or like let her like get bit by Dracula or just something to make her more interesting because she's like, I'm just a bad guy. I'm like, yeah, cool.
I mean, I do agree with that, because you do, in the very beginning of the movie, you do see how she is very much willing to get her hands dirty, even though like she was tutoring someone on how to cut a person up, which is messed up.
Yeah.
And then you get this feeling about how she is willing to kill everything, everyone, and anyone who stands in her way. And I was kind of and then the rest of the movie, you don't see this evil side of her. I was, to be perfectly honest, when she meets Dracula, I was kind of hoping she would become Dracula's queen, or he goes, you know what? I'm going to turn you into a vampire as well. And then she becomes absolute. She's like she essentially realizes her bloodlust full on.
I thought that was going to happen too, 100%.
So there's another aspect to this film that I was kind of surprised it wasn't utilizing, where I honestly thought that part of the relationship that they were going to play up, and it's fine if it's not, is that Renfield had always been promised by Dracula that eventually he would be a vampire, not a familiar anymore.
They never said that once in the movie.
And like that's not it's not there. It's not there. And I kind of thought like that's something that like you can get a lot more out of the dynamic between them and like what that means.
Yeah.
And like about why he stuck around and why he like you can really push that, like you chose power for yourself, like you can play victim, but this was all about what you gain out of the situation.
Here's the thing, this movie kind of messes that up, because as far as I am aware, in other familiar, like in like when you are a familiar, you don't become immortal, like you still age. So like I think that's something different, where Renfield should be a 90-year-old man at this point, but he is super powered.
He'd be older than that.
So, but what I mean is like
dead.
he doesn't need the vampire promise because he is immortal and he does have superpowers.
Right, but like having that power makes him Dracula's like equal, not his servant. And like they can both have familiars then, and like you can utilize that promise. My point was going to be, because like how much more nasty of a turn would it be if Dracula didn't make Ben Schwartz a familiar, but made him a vampire?
Oh yes.
And like that kind of like twist of the knife, like that's not even because he cares. It's just to hurt.
It's spite.
And like there's so much more you can play in what that relationship is, because like Renfield means something to Dracula, or he wouldn't go on the murder spree in the meeting, and he wouldn't do things the way that he's doing them if he didn't want to hurt Renfield personally. So like there's something that actually means something, and I think that's an important part of like what's missing in the film if you're going to focus on this idea of a codependent relationship, is that the person who's still holding the power in the codependent relationship is also still in the relationship and invested in a way, even if they want to lie to themselves about it. And like that would have been a way to really drive that home about like Dracula caring. You know, not in a way that you want him to, but like he does
in the way that an abuser
does
cares, because like they have power over someone, they don't want to lose that power. And like the scene where Dracula is like, I'm gonna kill everyone just to spite you, just because you betrayed me. And that is Dracula having feelings for Renfield, even though they're all negative feelings. He does feel a way.
Right. Yeah. Grayson bringing up a point, like I thought that what they were doing with Renfield was using Dracula's blood to stick around. I don't think like, well, he's not like addicted to it, and I don't think it's the thing keeping him. It is like the thing keeping him alive and immortal, but like that's just being the familiar as part of that, is having the Dracula's blood served to you. But I think the reason they get away with the familiar rules, like you're saying, is like you're talking about general vampire rules. We're following strictly Bram Stoker's Dracula adapted into the Universal Pictures film. There are no rules about what familiars can or can't do. So they're just playing in that limitless space where like he can stick around because we say so, and that's fine. But I don't mind that. But
no,
like,
I don't either. But I think that's why they can't do the vampire thing, because he is basically a vampire, right?
But again, like it's about that like being acknowledged as like
an equal.
Like it's a graduation idea. Like you serve your time, and eventually I'm going to bring you into the vampire brood, and we'll both have familiars. Like we'll be friends.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a goal,
and I'll care about you because like I'll acknowledge you as like a person in my eyes. You're a part of, like, rather than being my follower, you're a part of the side of the world that benefits. Like I think of it, and like that can be a thing that like Renfield is diluted and appealed to in the beginning, and something that has like waned over time.
I
think that angle is there. Just anything to make the relationship dynamic and Dracula's actual investment in it more prominent in this film, I think drives home the idea of what it's trying to do better.
Renfield, I like that they're just like, Renfield did abandon his child and his wife. I like that. Like there's like, he did do a really bad thing. He was out there for greed. So like he does deserve Dracula in a way, but like, hey, you can learn from your mistakes from 80 years ago or whatever. Yeah. It is funny that like she's like, I don't think you're a bad person, Renfield, and he's literally killed like how many hundreds of people over the last 80 years.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, the most prolific serial killer of our time. Yeah, okay.
So just like really good one-liners in this movie. Absolutely. There's this excellent exchange when Teddy Lomo first encounters him and he's like, do you know who I am? I'm Teddy Lomo. I'm Count Dracula. You win. You win. I think like there's a lot of really good zingers and solid line choices. There's a film that knocks it out of the park with another pass and a little more confidence in the tone that it wants to go for and committing to the bit rather than feeling like it needs to ground it more than being just goofy as hell.
Just accepting what it is.
Yeah.
Bringing up one-liners like the Teddy Lobo of like, this all seems a little bit familiar, and his eyes float. I'm like, that's so cheesy. I love it.
It is cheesy, but also I love how he snorts a centipede like it was cocaine.
Yeah.
Gross, but also it's like makes sense.
Yeah. Ben, can you explain to me why? And I talked about it with you. I just want to get it from Ben.
Yeah.
Renfield and all these guys, they have to eat bugs to get superpowers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In the fight between another familiar, he just eats more bugs and he just becomes more strong than the other familiar. I didn't understand that part because he just eats a bunch of bugs and then he like super kills him. But the other guy is a familiar who does the exact same things. Do you have to eat like 5 bugs to get 5 times as powerful as opposed to 3 bugs? Do you have to consume more bugs to become more powerful? I thought it was just you eat a bug and you're powerful.
Yeah, I thought that too.
I think it's a cop out in the end a little bit of just like I to be the bad guy, I'm just more powerful. Don't think about it.
I think that the other end of it, and I do think it's confusing because of him just like horking a bunch of bugs in the car. But I think that like you have limited time. Like there is a time limit on how long the bugs charge him for.
Sure.
And I can buy that when he walked in, he was charged. By the time he gets to the part where Teddy Lomo's like really kicking him around, the charge is gone and he needs to recharge.
I wish they... I believe that. I wish they conveyed that in the movie better.
I honestly wish they had made a little bit more of a bit at some point of, especially like with Teddy Lomo being a familiar of utilizing them both. Honestly, like you get your bit, like kind of like Everything Everywhere All at Once, where they're familiars with their powers and both of them lose their charge and they have to get to their bugs, but they can't get to their bugs.
That would have been
so they're
so
just
good.
Kind of like so slapping at each other.
That's
that kind
such
of
a good
thing.
reference.
And like they have to get to like just like in Everything Everywhere All at Once, like activating the skills from another universe.
The power.
They have to get to their bugs, and so it's like who's going to get to the bug first?
They're chasing flies around.
I think that would have been really good.
That would have been really funny.
Yeah, Grayson agrees. He thinks you're on it, Sparkz.
God, there's like a whole action scene of them like leaping over each other trying to get to this one fly.
or they see a spider up and they're like, spider.
Yeah. Well, that's a different movie, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. But it's all the more speaking to like there's something so wonderful here. There really is. And there's something so beautiful and goofy and weird about this idea and the execution with Nicolas Cage, Nicholas Hoult, who I think is doing a pretty good job most of the time.
Yeah.
I'll shout out in particular that I really love when he does the it's something I wish he did more, but at the beginning of the movie when he goes and he approaches those guys and says, I'm a friend of Caitlin, he has this bit where he does a laugh and he says, he adapts the classic film Renfield laugh into a more normal laugh, but it's still there. And I wish he did that more, like that it's like this indication of like Renfield's madness. And so the idea that could still live a bit in him, I wish he did it more than just once in the whole film.
I do wish he was less like romantic lead, more like manic, like weird guy. Because like he is like he plays a lot of these type of roles and like he's so good at being like a weirdo, but like
it feels like he starts weird and he gets more normal.
Yes.
And I wish he stayed weird.
By the time he's in the sweater and he got a beautiful haircut, like that's just a pale guy. That's just a pale. That's a white dude in Southern California. Yeah. Well, speaking of white dudes in Southern California, any other thoughts on Renfield before we wrap her up, guys?
After talking about it with you guys, I do definitely see the flaws. I think I was just more hyped in how. Funny enough, I was blindsided by Nicolas Cage's performance.
Well, sure. Look, there's a lot of really fun and good stuff. There's just a lot of cracks too.
Yeah.
And I agree with Ryan. Like, I think the movie is a whole decent chunk better if it just loses that narration.
Yeah.
I think there's one sequence, but to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you exactly which one, where I think it's good and it's useful. And it's pretty much the opening, like doing the recap, like him guiding us through
that's fine.
like all the stuff of like, this is who I am. And I think when you're using it in terms of him like talking about Dracula, even if we're not seeing Nicholas Hoult on screen, but he's talking about Dracula in the meeting.
Yeah.
I think that's all fine.
Yeah.
But then outside of that, I don't think
it's the stuff that's
useful.
It's funny because we were talking about like problems I have like illumination of like, well, that just happened.
Yeah.
And literally like the first joke of Renfield is like, oh, I didn't think that was going to happen in narration. And I was like, oh, please, no, not the whole movie. Luckily, it's not the whole movie. Thank God. But like, we just watched Everything Everywhere All at Once. And that is a movie that is free of studio interference, that was creators allowed to make their vision. And I see that with Renfield, but the studio is like, it's just too weird. We can't allow it to be that weird. And I would just like, I know there's a better movie here. Like I see it. There's so much good shit in here. Hampered by like, but I'm a producer. I'm like, that's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I see.
Unfortunately, this movie is bombing hard. This movie came out this week and it came out in 4th place, behind John Wick, behind Mario, behind whatever else came out. Yeah, it's unfortunately people weren't excited.
Behind D&D.
Behind D&D. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I'm sad that this isn't being received in a way where like just more people aren't seeing it, because like I want them to take more swings like this. Even though this one didn't land 100% the way I wanted to, I still had a good time watching it, and I'd like to see more choices in this direction.
Yeah.
With the Universal monsters than just strictly trying to do horror remakes over and over and over again.
Not everything.
I don't want them to feel confined to that. I want them to feel like we can get this kind of goofy and out there.
Not everything needs to be a franchise, but like I could see this being like, we have the dark horror thing happening, but like this is our jokey version. This is the fun one. We got Nicolas Cage as a Dracula. We got Charlie Day as the Invisible Man. Like just we can have this be the fun, goofy version. Like I wish we could live in that world, but this movie again bombed. So like, unfortunately, the last voyage of the Demeter. It's up to you. It's up to you. Good Dracula this year.
I'm excited for that. I think that's really cool. I just don't want that to feel like the only thing that they can make.
Yeah,
with these monsters. Yeah,
because again, this is a fun big swing, but unfortunately it didn't totally work out. Ben, why don't you rate it?
I was gonna give it an 8, but now after talking with you guys, I think I'll give it a 7.5.
I will say I wish this film had come out in October. I think it would have stood a better chance.
Spookier season.
I do feel like it was a mistake to bring out a film prominently featuring
in the summer, but after Mario,
a Nick Cage Dracula in the summer. I don't know what the thinking was there to drop this movie now.
Yeah,
I would have rather that it came out later in the year, especially because this back half of the year is much less crowded as far as like big name IP.
I agree, and even if this movie isn't like a total success, I think it would be more successful in that time period.
Yeah, more people would be willing to be like, Dracula, the Nick Cage Dracula movie. It's spooky time.
But when big movies come out I'm sure some people still haven't seen Mario or John Wick or Dungeons and Dragons, like they're trying to catch up. I get it.
Absolutely.
I will give it a solid 7. I think there's a lot to love, but just not enough to make me love it.
No, I agree. I'm also at a 7. I think that it's got some amazing parts that don't all go together with some of the parts that are dragging it down. But it's such a wonderful swing. I hope more people come to it over time because I think it's really, really fun.
Absolutely. I agree.
I had a great time watching it. I did.
Yeah, absolutely.